Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
Hey, it's the Maryland Crabs. We're back here again at the end of the year. It's December 28th when we're recording this, and because...
And John's birthday.
Oh, yeah.
John is 62.
Yep. That's it. 2 more years and I can retire. 3 more years, I guess. But...
you can't retire till you're like 80 at this point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We had actually planned something. We'll talk about that in a little bit to do last night. So we're doing this. We're just going to do sort of a recap of the year. And we're going to see where we're going to go in 2017. I mean, we're here and we're ready to move. So if you want to follow us, if you've just discovered us, make sure you follow us where you can. You can go onto Twitter at MD Crabs Podcast. You can go online at themarylandcrabs.com, which is our website, which has all of our episodes on it. Or you can go onto Facebook, which is the Maryland Crabs Podcast. And we have both a page and a group there as well. You can subscribe to us. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, soon to be iHeartRadio.
I do HeartRadio.
Yeah, I haven't seen it on there yet, but they said it takes sometimes several weeks to populate and do there, but we should be available on iHeartRadio.
Yep, but you do want to subscribe if possible, because that means that you don't miss a single episode, because once a new episode comes out, it's automatically downloaded to your device. No fuss, no muss. You don't have to worry about a thing.
It's just like a magazine that comes to your front door, or the... I would say it would be like the Capital newspaper, but that never makes it to your front door, it seems.
There's been some issues from what I understand. I'm sure they're going to work it out.
Yeah, that's why I went digital with them.
See, now my problem with the digital thing is that I cannot keep away from the comment section, but I have deleted...
That's not your problem with the Capital. That's the problem that you got with
Let's not
yourself,
mince words, John. So what I did was I tried to cancel my account so I wouldn't have the temptation, and they couldn't cancel my account. So they said they'd try it. And
the technology was too hard?
I guess. So what I did was I changed my email to some nonsensical email, and then I looked away and just smashed the keyboard with my palm, and that was my new password. And so I locked myself out because I have no self-control.
That's brilliant, actually.
It was actually pretty brilliant.
In some sort of stupid way, that's pretty brilliant.
Yeah, so now I can watch the comments go, and it's become this cesspool that I cannot stay away from. It's like Bourbon Street, except not fun.
I'm talking to you, MD Veritas and Bob McWilliams and everybody else that gets into there.
Yeah, it's become a nasty place, and I cannot not look. That's my New Year's resolution. That's one of them, is that I want to stay away from the comment section of everything. That's where I go first. Sometimes I don't even read the articles. I go right to the comments.
Just jump right in, yeah.
There's nothing that can be, no good can come from that.
Right.
It's just, it's a cesspool, and I cannot not go there.
Right. Well, we are coming to you from Sammy's Pizza Kitchen.
Yeah,
Sammy's Italian Pizza Kitchen? Sammy's, what's this place called? Sammy's Italian Pizza Kitchen. I'm reading the sign in the window. Over in the Eastport Shopping Center.
And we're one mic in it, so that's why it may sound a little bit...
Yeah, a little bit off. What's happening in my house is I've got a visiting child with her visiting dog. It's tearing up the place.
And my place is crawling with kids, with tweens, who all want to be pushed through walls.
Yeah, so we escaped to Sammy's Pizza Kitchen. I had a couple good slices of pizza.
And I had a salad with chicken, because I'm a healthy guy now.
Yeah. I'm not, it's not 2017 yet. But we did mention last night, man, did we have some good intentions yesterday? And did I ever screw them up?
All right, so here's what happened. So we decided before Christmas that we were going to do a live event, because we've been talking about doing a live event at a local bar, a local something or other. So we decided that we were going to do it at our favorite watering hole, which is the Ebb Tide, which is by both of us, and we love it. If you haven't gone there, the food's great, the prices are great.
And when Tim says our favorite watering hole, that's not being facetious or sarcastic at all. It's totally on point. Best burger in town.
Yep.
Bar
none.
Cheap. Yeah, it is, and it's one of the few places I can go where you can see, I say white collar, pay collar, and no collar.
And Latino, and black, and white.
All getting along together for some reason. There hasn't been a fight there in
I've never seen
20, 30 minutes.
The loose change after the fight's my favorite part. But, so we decided that we were going to do it last night, which was the 27th, which turned out to be the military bowl.
Right.
Which we didn't take into account.
Well, we did take into account, but I just the timing with having to publish or having to release them on Thursdays was what we needed to do. We needed to do it on Tuesday, and that didn't work out. But the concept was great, and we're going to continue it.
Yeah, it worked out. It was fun, but what happened was it was wall-to-wall people when we got there, and we had about...
and when Tim says we, he means him,
yes,
not me.
because John blew it off.
I didn't know. The military bowl just went very, very long. It was almost 4.5 hours, and then traffic getting out of the stadium was incredible. I mean, I had thought that certainly with a 3:30 game, I would be able to be there by 7 o'clock. It just didn't happen, and it wasn't fair to keep anybody that was there for us waiting.
And we had about 10 people who were there. 5 of which we knew pretty well, and then 5 that were kind of drifting in the corners who were too shy to come up. And I know they wanted to, but frankly, we didn't have a lot of room because we didn't expect it to be that packed, and it was packed, and it was loud. So we recorded last night. We had a great time doing it. It was a great podcast, but when we went to edit it, it was just we couldn't. It was just way too loud. We just didn't anticipating it to be like that. So rather than put out the sound unlistenable, yeah, just so you could kind of hear us in the background, we decided that it was a lesson learned. We're definitely going to do it again because it was a lot of fun, and we learned a lot from last night's event. But we're going to have to change up, how we do it, where we do it, and I will do the Ebb Tide again because I do love that. We're just going to pick a quieter night to do it. But we are going to do that again, definitely, and we're going to try and make it a regular occurrence because we're kind of hooked on it now.
And if we need to buy buy some special equipment or something to reduce some sound, or we'll figure out what we have to do. We have to get new microphones or something like that. So that's one of our chores for 2017. And Tim, I do want to thank you for making me feel especially like shit for missing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because it was awful of you.
Because, well, as you mentioned, it is my birthday today.
It is.
And apparently last night there was one of our fans, you want to call them podcast?
Friend of the podcast.
A friend of the podcast showed up at the Ebb Tide with a birthday cake. So I feel absolutely...
Oh, not only did he show up with the cake, it's a cake that he decorated himself at Safeway by slipping behind the counter because there was no one there. And I'm not kidding. He slipped behind the counter and decorated it himself. So he was so proud of himself. Little shapes of crabs and everything. So he was particularly pleased to hear that you were ditching on us.
But I felt like crap on that, and I know Gene will listen again. And Gene, thank you very, very much. I do apologize with you from the bottom of my heart, and we'll get together, and the next beer is on me, my friend.
And just realize what this means is that I am much, much better friend to you than John is, and let's just establish that right now.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today is this podcast is going to be more kind of end of the year house cleaning. So It's not going to be, if you're sitting on the edge of your seat waiting for our usual brilliance, it's going to be a little more laid back today. So we're sitting at a table with our bottomless drinks, the remnants of my salad, and the pizza that John destroyed, and we're just going to talk a little bit about where we are and where we're going.
And you want to listen to where we're going, because I think we've got some pretty exciting stuff that's for 2017 that will gradually come to fruition, and where our plan is and everything else, but we can never look to where we went or where we're going unless we look at where we went.
Right. So we started this podcast in September.
Now, and again, I'll throw out another shout out to Scott McMillan and the Annapolis podcast, because we had talked about a podcast for years.
Yep.
And it's just something that we just didn't. I don't want to say we didn't have the time. We just never made the time.
Yeah, it's something I've been listening to podcasts for 12 years. Back when there was like 2 of them, and I've been a junkie. That's all I listened to, and I've always thought about doing a podcast, but I didn't know what the angle was going to be. It was and John, who had Eye in Annapolis and had his finger on the pulse of what was going on, we kind of talked about it for probably a couple of years. He's right, and just saying, well, we ought to, and then I don't know when we pulled the trigger. Why did the
I got tired of you whining.
Yeah, well, that's how we get all our stuff.
But
I had some birthday money, and I bought a mixer. That's what it was.
Okay. And yeah, so that's essentially what we did. We decided to do it, and we weren't the first. Scott McMillan, I would say, is probably the first podcaster locally.
Oh, yeah. He's killing it.
In the area. And he started with the Annapolis podcast, which if you're not listening to, you should go listen to. It's great. He talks to individual people around town, gets their stories, finds out what the history is behind how they got there.
He's got the dog whisperer on this week, I think.
Who's that?
I don't know. I can't pull it up. But he was, it's some guy who's a pet trainer. He's a dog whisperer.
Huh.
So it's going to be a very quiet podcast. He's just going to whisper the whole time.
Yeah.
Sit. Stay. But,
I dare him to bark at him.
So
that'd be funny.
Yeah, so Scott's been great. And then
you've got Liz Murphy with Quintain Marketing is doing creative content.
I believe that's it. No, Creator's Block.
Creator's Block, that's right. I'm sorry.
Creative Block.
Which is
we're mangling this.
Which is a marketing focused podcast. And there's not too many in Annapolis. So
because the Annapolis Underground we found on Reddit, which is YouTube, so it's like a vlog, I guess. But it's video, and they have local artists and stuff. But it's pretty cool. I mean,
it is.
I like where they're taking that.
Yep, I really do. And so, but what we did, so we started this thing out in September. We sat down at the kitchen table, which is the intro says that's where it is recorded a lot of times, at a kitchen table, and just sort of went from there. We decided to talk to some people that were, movers and shakers and different things that are happening in town. We decided to opine on things that we had no business opining upon, and go from there.
And basically, we decided we wanted to do one every couple weeks. So we thought we'd get ahead of ourselves, and we did one, and then the next week we wanted to do one early to get it out of the way so we didn't miss it, and we decided to publish that early because we were excited.
Because there was something else that came up. I can't remember what it was, but there was something that came up that made us not go every other week and jump in every week.
We accidentally went every week, and now that we've done that, it's kind of a habit. We didn't want to miss anything.
Right.
And even this week we said, well, the one that the uptide didn't work out, you want to skip one? We couldn't do it. So
here we are, Sammy's eating pizza and talking into a microphone.
Now, at some point, we're going to have one of us on vacation, or one of us is killed in a suspicious car accident. We're going to have to maybe get a
I do not
guest
know the
host.
Clintons.
But we may do that. But so we started in September. This is our 20th episode, believe it or not, which is pretty amazing.
Yes.
We've had everybody from Walter Vasquez, who owns Sinfron Terrace. We had Gavin Buckley, the owner of Tsunami and Metropolitan, and who is the mayoral candidate.
Every other restaurant in Annapolis.
Right. And we had Kenny Burns, who was the reporter who was banned from the
Stephanie Rollins Blake, mayor of Baltimore's office.
And then we've had the Speaker of the House. We've had the governor. We've had, who, by the way, his dog just died yesterday.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, he was a great guy. We've had the police chief.
Michael Pristoop from Annapolis City Police Chief. We've had Sean O'Neill, who is the former head of the Annapolis Business Association.
The new HACA, members of the new HACA board. We've had Robert Eads. We've had Jessica Packler, all to discuss crime. So we've done...
Mr. Keys.
Mr. Keys, the 95-year-old World War II vet. So what we've done, and what we did by design, actually, was that we wanted the first couple dozen, we figured, to be Annapolis-based. We wanted them local because we wanted to build a local following before we started to expand to the state. And that's what we're starting to do now. We did that with the speaker. We did that with the governor, is that we wanted to kind of... because, we didn't want to fish out the Annapolis pond,
right?
Because there's only so much you can do. I mean, how much can you talk about crime? Well, apparently we can do it a lot, but we want to expand, so we're going to be looking to do that. But so far, we've grown a lot faster than we anticipated growing. To be honest with you,
we have. It's funny. I'm not a junkie, but I'm on Reddit enough, and there's a subreddit for podcasting, and sometimes people will sit there and post that, hey, we got our first 1,000 downloads. And the question I asked was like, well, is that, per episode? Is that per month? And the answer usually comes back and says, well,
total,
like forever.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm like, oh, great, congratulations. But we sit there and we look. When we throw a podcast up there, I mean, we get a huge spike the very first day.
Yep.
And
we watch the numbers like junkies.
That noon. Yeah, it's from noon on through midnight.
Because we release every Thursday at noon, as you all know.
Unless Tim screws it up, and then it's like...
Did I mention John didn't show up last night? Just completely blew us off?
But yeah, no, we try to release them at noon on Thursdays. And 12:15, actually, they show up on other places, but if you subscribe, it comes to you at noon. The website jumps in at 12:15 or so. But yeah, no, we look at the numbers, and they're very encouraging. I mean, when we sit there and see 500 or 600 downloads in the first day, and then we look at a 3-month period and see how many they've got going 3 months. I mean, we barely have 3 months under our belt at this point.
Right.
The numbers are going up, and if you look at the aggregate little wave things on our analytic thing, it's definitely trending up.
Yeah, so it's encouraging for us, and it makes we're doing some stuff right. We're learning. We're making some mistakes. Matter of fact, to be honest with you, to be completely honest with you, there's one episode that we came out of that we didn't feel that good about, and that's Where the Locals Go. And we came out of that.
Yeah, we're all.
And John's always, I'm a perfectionist, and John's always tearing his hair out because he's got to put up with me. And I'm always bitching about sound quality or something, and he finally sat me down and said, "Look, some episodes are going to be awesome, some are not going to be great. It's just part of the process." So when we came out of that one, I thought, well, that sucked, and I listened to it. And I'm like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought, but that was one of our most popular episodes, and we got the most feedback from that episode.
Yep.
So it just goes to show that we're in our own heads too much, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like the old thing that when I used to be in retail, I used to own several travel agencies, and one of the things they used to tell us is, don't shop with your own wallet.
Yeah.
Don't sit there
I
and
just said,
say,
yeah, like I knew what that meant.
I don't need to. I'm not going to sell you a trip based on what I can afford, because you may be, I may be looking at a Carnival cruise for $3,000 or $4,000, but no, you may have the budget for a fancier one for $12,000.
Yeah.
So don't limit ourselves on that, and that's the thing that I think is very difficult for anybody to get over, and I think that's something that we do need to get over as far as trying to second guess what listeners want.
Right, and that said, if you have something you want us to talk about, definitely let us know. I mean, we do listen. We've had a few suggestions right now we followed up on, and we have stuff scheduled for the new year. But we want to hear from if you have a topic or you want to be on, you have an interesting story, we'll have you on. We're not. I mean, we've had the mayor, we've had the speaker, but if you got an interesting story, we're going to do it.
Right. I just heard from Delegate Herb McMillan, who wants to come on and wants to address Speaker Busch and his comment.
Which would be awesome.
Yeah, we got to get them together. Put them in a room, throw some oil in there, and wrestle around a little bit.
Yeah, and then I've thrown out. We've got some other people that we've thrown out lines to.
Well, yep. Mayor Panelides has contacted us. He wants to come on.
Right, and this is a mayoral election year, so this is going to be a lot of energy is going to be spent on that for the next year, because we've had Mayor Panelides on, or we will have him on. We had Buckley. Gavin Buckley on, and we have another mystery guest that we're going to have on who we suspect is going to declare candidacy, which is going to shake everything up if we're right. And I was about to say we don't deal in innuendo and supposition, but that's exactly where we live. So,
well, that's what we know at this point. So
yeah, so we're going to have we have an invitation out to that individual, and then we'll have Gavin on again. And then what we want to do is we want to host a debate. And again, so that's very Annapolis centric, and we know that we're starting to grow outside that, but we're going to be looking at other areas too that have similar elections.
Yeah, our thoughts on the debate were to have several microphones set up for the candidates to be able to sit up there. We'll take some questions that are devised by us, some questions that are solicited from other people on different things, whether it be through Facebook or through Twitter or whatnot, and do it. And we're also going to Facebook Live it as well, so you could watch it live as it happens, and then catch the recording the following Thursday at noon when you do it.
And we'll be able to take questions from people too. So
yeah, if you attend there, and I mean, at this point, I don't know where it's going to be, but I'm probably going to look to do it at the Rams Head.
Yeah, that's they've been friends to us too. So
do it on Rams Head on stage. So there's some lighting, and we might have some sound.
Yeah, some real sound. Yeah.
Some real sound to deal with there. I'll tell you, it's funny. We talked about the mayor race, and as I look through the reports coming off of the the hosting site where we host the sound, and boy, that Gavin episode,
that was huge.
Gavin Buckley was huge. I mean, we sat in the back of 49 West.
He's a lot of fun too,
with the dishes clinking in the background. Oh, he was fun. I saw him yesterday on. He had a bunch of friends from Australia, and
were they drunk?
He had a bunch of friends from Australia,
right?
And I saw him at the Military Bowl Parade, and they were there. He and his partner Jody Danik and both of their wives were there entertaining and owning Main Street. I mean, you could tell he was definitely out and about a lot more than he used to be. But he was very very forward about what he sees as the downfall. And this is his whole mural thing aside. I mean, needs to see Annapolis become a much more business-friendly community. That it's not. He thinks he's the guy that can do it.
And it's funny. He and the same person who talked about that was Governor Hogan. Was that's the whole reason he ran, was because he saw a business climate in Maryland that was completely unconducive to growth as far as revenues, and that's the whole reason that he ran. So that's the common theme. And Trump, for that's been his core message, is that he wants. If you boil it down, he wants a business-friendly environment in this country to move forward. So that seems to be the watchword in every election is business.
Well, it does. Business really drives everything here. If you don't have a robust business community, you don't have a whole lot of anything here. And I've been a very big proponent of that. And we called Sean O'Neill out on that when we talked about, when he was a guest, that was just nothing more than, it's politically incorrect call it, but it was nothing more than abortion to turn around and sell the soul of the Annapolis Business Association to the city vis-a-vis the...
Well, I think his point was, and I get it too, on paper it looked great. You see, I'm not a big believer in public-private partnerships. I don't think they work for various reasons. I think because other than importing you think that you're going to have the stability of the governmental institution, and you're going to bring a business perspective to it, and what it does is the opposite. It takes the governmental culture, and I'm not banging on anyone in government, but it takes that kind of inefficiency into the whole partnership and kind of holds them back. So I'm not a big believer in those. So I think that's going to be interesting this year to see how that fleshes out, the downtown partnership, if it survives. I don't think it will. I don't think it can. I know, just speaking to a lot of the business owners during the Midnight Madnesses, the three of them, they're very upset. And I'm not...
Who was upset?
A lot of the business owners, especially on Maryland Ave, and where they just feel that they have no representation whatsoever. They feel that the downtown partnership is really not addressing the issues that weren't being addressed before, but there was supposed to be a new life breathed into it, and they don't see that. Now, again, that's anecdotal, but...
let me come to the Downtown Annapolis Partnership's defense a little bit on this, in that it's still a fairly new reiteration of an old organization. So, the new executive director, she came in summer?
Yeah, around there.
I don't know exactly when, but and the business community is not going to be turned around overnight. Laura Fritz had said that when she was here with the Annapolis Economic Development Corporation under Mayor Cohen. So, hey, turn your phone off.
Well, that was maybe so, but I think with the AEDC, the Annapolis Economic Development Corp, I was not a fan of that, because they seemed, and I'm saying this blatantly, they seemed incredible at generating reports and emails and press releases, but there was no actual businesses being helped or assisted.
There were very few.
But they were very good at generating paperwork to justify their existence, and I am calling them out for that. In fact, I think the city spent a lot of money, and they not only did they have nothing to show for it, they can't look up and see. They can't decide what was done because there's no evidence, there's no paper trail.
They destroyed they wiped the computers and whatnot.
Right,
and the guys on that, and Sean O'Neill had defended them a little
which
bit.
I disagreed with, because
he said, "Oh yeah, no, they had to do it because of proprietary information." No, that's no.
But I understand. Again, it was that public-private partnership where the private aspects that were supposed to make it efficient were smothered by the governmental aspect, which is that they were being funded in large part by public monies, so that they became a government entity. And frankly, government entities just have no place in business. They never have. So
no, and it rarely works.
But the governor talked about that way, and I think Steve Shue is looking at the same thing in Anne Arundel County. I think
we ought to talk to Steve.
Yeah,
we ought to go in and talk to him and see if we can get him to sit down without Owen.
There's some interesting things. I was looking at the stormwater fees. That's another thing.
He's got the whole the rezoning or the zoning thing, which has the Mayo people all upset.
Yeah, but they can be worked up no matter what. They just want, and you know what is, you can kind of sneer at that, but then as residents of the Annapolis Neck, we kind of bitch about the same thing. Mm-hmm. So they will say, hey, I think they were going to sink the money into, was that Mayo Park or Mayo Beach? the public beach out there,
Right.
and or maybe it wasn't.
Well, it's the whole lift on the moratorium. When this whole pipeline that's coming through across the South River, when that's completed and online, the moratorium on development in the Mayo Peninsula will ease. And SHU is trying to implement I'm going to miss the last term, but in South County, where it's going to restrict development in South County to keep it rural, if you will. But Mayo is somewhat exempt from that because there's lots of little places where they could build a 5 or a 10 home.
Well, I think because if you're looking south of like 424 or 214 rather,
Yeah.
it is a lot of agriculture down that way. A
Yeah.
lot of horse farms and agriculture.
Yep.
Whereas down on Mayo, you don't have that. It's just those are old summer resorts.
Right, and they want to still keep
Right.
the
feel.
they've got the peninsula, the one way in and the one way out.
Right.
The road is very narrow. They've been working on that intersection of Muddy Creek Road and 214 forever.
Right, and I know I've not experienced, but they're talking about the level of backup they have there, which is they said is spectacular. I don't know, I think
it's funny. I laugh at everybody in Annapolis that talks about Forest Drive, and I've never really experienced a horrible experience with Forest Drive. I mean, when it gets shut down, it gets shut down. I mean, that's a given. But on a daily basis,
before they did that work about 6 years ago,
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have Aris-T would back up past Riva on a daily basis, and it doesn't anymore. I agree, but
No, I mean there are some, but it's if you're feeling sorry about your traffic, go up to Crofton and drive down that Route 3.
that is pretty brutal. Yeah.
I was down there the other night, or up there the other night, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is just.
But you know what, though? I mean, I think when you do that comparison, you say, oh, we're not as bad as Crofton. I think the problem that you have with Forest Drive and with Mayo is that they don't want to be like Crofton. So they're trying to, because, it's the camel's nose in the tent, is that once it starts, I mean, once you have Crystal Spring, the fear is after that, it's the traffic is going to be hellacious and there's nothing you can do about it after that point. So I
Right.
get the fear. You don't want to be like Crofton and you don't want to have that where you're on a peninsula and you can't get on and off. And we did experience that on Forest Drive before you had that widening, which did the trick. But I mean, I don't think it would take much to send it back to where it was. So I kind of get where they're coming from Mayo, but I just don't think that they don't have the argument. I think whenever you complain about traffic, like I do and other people do, it doesn't hold any weight with any officials or they don't care. You'd have to come up with something better than that.
Right.
So saying this is our way of life, this is the way we like it, and we don't want the traffic. BFD.
You've got to come up with something else.
You need something else, which is why the environmental groups who are very vocal about Crystal Spring are the one who are really leading the fight, because that is something that's hard to counter that argument. Once that issue goes away, then it's getting done. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in traffic for 2 hours going in and coming out, it's still going to get built.
Right.
Traffic's just not important.
No, I agree. Well, it'd be interesting to see, but I mean, Steve Shu, I think, would be a good person to have on here.
Yeah.
And if anybody here is listening has ideas for guests, all ears. Send us an email, info@themarylandcrabs.com.
Or on our Facebook page or our Facebook group, you can post it there or send us messages. We do respond.
Twitter, MD Crabs Podcast.
Yeah, MD Crabs Podcast. The other thing is, so we're going to have it. So if we're here in Anne Arundel County, obviously, but we can do some traveling to go talk to people. But if it's someone like if you're the mayor of Oakland, Maryland, or someone who lives up Deep Creek, or someone on the lower Eastern Shore, we can Skype in. We have the technology, we can do it. So it'll sound pretty good. So we can pretty much talk to anybody.
Right, and we're always up for a road trip too. I mean, if you live someplace cool,
Gets me out of the house.
you've got to know your way around the kitchen and can make a good dinner. We'll come and eat. We'll bring the beer.
And we've thrown out lines to Kevin Spacey and to John Waters, and because they're local guys, Pat Sajak.
Yep. I must say.
But yeah, we've got and they've all given us a firm maybe. So well, actually, John Waters, they're those people. They were actually the nicest, and they said that he's traveling in Europe, but maybe in spring. So we want to get a taste of Baltimore.
Yeah, that's Hollywood for go pound sand. But yeah, no. So I mean, we've got a lot of ground to cover. We've covered a lot of ground. Crime obviously was a big thing that we covered this part of the year.
Suck the marrow out of that.
Yeah, we talked to we covered all aspects of that. I mean,
we solved it.
Yeah, no, unfortunately we didn't. I mean, well, maybe it was our reason that the police department got an extra $1.25 million. But they still can't direct traffic out of the stadium. Yeah. Heroin is, we probably ought to talk. Oh, we're going to be talking to Wes Sims, who is the state's attorney and for Anne Arundel County. And we're going to talk about the heroin addiction and what they've done to change Anne Arundel's reputation as being the place to go when you need to do drugs or when you need to do crime.
I'd like to talk to him about civil forfeitures. That's more of a national story, and we don't have that big of a problem with it with civil forfeitures in Maryland. But that's something that's always fascinated me and enraged me too. That's simply where you're pulled over for something, and they can't find evidence of a crime, but they're going to see you have $10,000 on you. You had $5,000 on you, and they pull you over, and they can't prove you committed a crime, but it's suspicious you have $5,000, so we're gonna take that. Yeah. And that's a big problem in Texas and a lot of these, and Louisiana, a lot of the southern states, and the police use it as a funding tool, and it's the constitutionality of it is rightfully being questioned. But I want someone who actually knows about
has the background.
Yeah, I think we've had some issues with that in Maryland, but not significant enough that it's an issue here for us. But I do want to learn more about it.
I know seizures, as far as if you're caught with the drugs in your car, they take your car.
Right.
Is that along the same lines?
Well, yes and no.
Because that's a crime that has occurred.
Right. Yes and no. So there's two, and this is what I want to have him explain. If you're pulled over and you got a joint in your car, and this was big back in the early '90s, which was zero tolerance. I think there was a famous case where a guy had a roach. That's a tiny bit of a marijuana joint.
Oh, not his pet bug?
No.
So that's what a roach is called?
I'm told.
Oh, okay.
So, but he had a minuscule amount that was in the garbage can on his yacht. He had like a $2-4 million yacht somewhere in Miami, and they seized the yacht over this, and that was like the big case. I don't think that's the same. What it is there was a kid who was traveling from Albuquerque to LA. This is just an example. This happens all the time, and there was a drug dog, I think, and I'm totally mangling this, but there was like a drug dog in Phoenix or somewhere, because Arizona is another state that's famous for the civil forfeitures. But a drug dog hit on his bag, and it was a fake hit, or it was a false hit. But they searched the bag anyway, so there's some questions with these drug dogs too, that some of them are being trained in some cases. They're being guided to make hits when there aren't any hits, and that's another source of debate. But they found, I think, like $10,000, which was his life savings, because he was going to try and make it in like the hip hop industry in LA. Well, he couldn't prove that he didn't acquire this money legally or illegally. So
ill-gotten gains out of a drug sale.
So that's why you'll have cases like the state of Arizona versus $10,000 found in a bag. Like literally, that's what it's called. Versus $10,000 found in a bag in Tucson, Arizona. So just by having the money, it's not illegal in and of itself. But if you can't prove where it came from, then they take it. And apparently, this is a major source of funding for small towns. Like there's a town in Texas, like outside Texarkana or somewhere, where not Travelocity, but whatever the travel advisory, not AAA, but something like that, TripAdvisor, has advised people to go around, because if you're pulled over for speeding, they'll search it. They take computers. And apparently this is a major source of funding for that police department. So the police unions, the police departments, some of them are fighting for civil forfeitures, while the ACLU and various other civil liberties groups are fighting, saying you cannot, if you're not convicted of a crime, how can you be penalized? So I'd like to see. I've just given you a lot of information, most of which is probably incorrect. And if you're a law enforcement officer, you're screaming at your iPhone right now. But I have a friend of mine. I know a lot of police officers. I'm Irish, so yeah. And I have a couple friends where I've talked to them about it, and they're just like, no, that they're tools for us to do our jobs, And I think that police. And again, I'm making a wild assumption here, but a lot of police, as a practical matter, aren't concerned with a lot of constitutional issues in the heat of it, because their job is to stop crime and get criminals off the streets. So to them, like I argued with him about the whole case last year, where can the police can they go into your phone? And the argument was, well, they can go into a pack of cigarettes, that you have. Why can't they search a phone? And the argument is, well, because the phone is a portal to everywhere. It's a portal to your pictures. It's a portal to everything.
It's a front door.
Right, and my police officer friend is like, but you're stripping us of yet another tool to get the bad guys off the streets. And, so he's got that practical aspect going, you're sitting in your armchair with your objections to how we do our jobs is hindering what you want done, which is make life safer for you and your kids.
We're getting real off topic, but
I don't care.
On that topic.
Don't keep me on topic.
We were talking about this morning on R&R. Alexa, which is the Echo,
right?
The chick that lives in the Echo thing that Amazon makes,
right?
And there's questions: is that always is ready, just like the telephones are with Hey Siri? It's always listening to you, and it's listening for that trigger word, Hey Siri or Hey Alexa,
right?
To do that. And there was a murder in 2015 in a hot tub. Some guy apparently got bludgeoned to death, blood all over and whatnot. They arrested the guy. They haven't been able to prove it yet. But what they've done is they've subpoenaed Amazon for all of the sound that may have been recorded prior to see if Alexa, because all that trigger sound is kept on servers someplace. So when you try to wake up your phone by saying, Hey Siri,
yeah,
there she is.
That's what I thought.
As did everybody else who's listening to this. But when you wake it up, it had to be listening prior to me saying that to understand it.
Right.
So now, and it's very similar to that case where the terrorists in California, San Bernardino, and the FBI wanted Apple to unlock the phone.
Right. And I supported Apple on that one.
For them to be able to?
No, to keep the phone locked.
Yes.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that I'm big on civil liberties, and which is convenient as long as I'm not affected, per se. So the argument to that is going, hey, yeah, Tim, you support the fact that you don't want to let law enforcement into a phone to prevent terrorism. What if that's your family? What if that's your friends? Well, then I want them to tear the phone apart, and I want them to pull their fingernails out, because then now I've lost my perspective.
Now it's personal, right?
Right, but that's why I'm not in charge of those decisions. That's why you don't have that emotional decision-making process given to people who are directly affected. That's because I am a big believer in civil liberties. So do I believe in warrants? Do I believe in all that? But what if it's my daughter who's kidnapped? Well, then of course I don't. Right. Then of course I want. But that's why we have society set up for that way. Is that you keep it dispassionate. And sometimes horrible things are going to happen in order for everyone to keep their basic constitutional rights, and it sucks. I get it. But We're in a brave new world right now when it comes to privacy. I always said this: what if Google all of a sudden turned around and started sending emails to people, going, "Hey, cut us a check for this, or we want that, or because we have everything you've ever searched for on Google." Just think about the power of that. Google knows more about us than anybody, probably even your spouse or girlfriend. They know what you like, what you don't.
Yeah, they know your spouse and your girlfriend.
Yeah, they know what your kinks are. They know all these things. There was Dan Carlin, who's my hero. I always go on about him, and he's got a great podcast called Common Sense with Dan Carlin. He's also got a great one called Hardcore History. But he has a great point with this. Think about 1962 to 63. Someone sent an anonymous letter to Martin Luther King Jr., and in it was an audio tape of him in a threesome with two women, neither of which were his wife. This is documented.
Right.
And they said, "Kill yourself now." All right. So they took the tape and they sent it to him and said, "Kill yourself now." And obviously he didn't. Obviously I think later they found out it came out from someone within the FBI. But think about this now. Let's say that you're a reporter. Let's say that you're about to break a big story. Michael Hastings. I mean, there's a lot of talk about whether he was killed or not. And I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I have to wonder.
Right.
But if you look,
you're not a conspiracy.
I'm not. But if you look at, but let's say that you're a reporter and you're about to break a big story, and all of a sudden you get an anonymous letter going, "Hey, what about all that child porn that's on your computer?" You're like, "I don't have any child porn." You go, "Not yet. You don't."
Right.
I mean, all of a sudden, they have the power to put. I mean, tell me the NSA can't do that. The FBI, the CIA, they've done it before.
To inject.
And I'm not being an InfoWars Alex Jones type here, but I mean, they did it with MLK Jr. So I mean, why couldn't? I mean, think about it. And then let's say it's Glenn Greenwald, well, he's not an American citizen, but let's say, it was Snowden, where they know beforehand that he's going to leak all this information to Glenn Greenwald, and all of a sudden they find all this child porn on his computer, but they'll say, well, it was to protect national security. They weren't being bad. We had to do that to protect national security. They're doing it with the right intentions, but I mean, that's the scary thing. That's where kind of we're heading. If you're a reporter and all of a sudden not only could you ruin your career, but you could go to prison for something you didn't even do.
Right.
That's a big deal.
That's some serious stuff.
It's enough. I was watching the Black Mirror. That's that great that British series on Netflix. If you haven't checked it out, it's kind of like a Twilight Zone, and it's great where they're blackmailing all these people to do horrible things because they have access to the cameras on their computers, which is completely plausible, and it's being done now. And they catch these people doing bad things, and they're blackmailing them to do illegal activities. We're not that far off from that. So anyway, podcasts.
Well, now that we talked that out, so that's just a little peek about who we've got coming up in the immediate future. I mean, actually, we've got it on the calendar to talk with State's Attorney Wes Adams.
And then we're going to be doing some more live stuff, which will be roundtable stuff. So you have some homework if you're going to come out to that. And we want something to crab about, something to talk about, and something to bitch about. We're going to give you the forum. We'll all discuss it. And we're also reaching out to some of our, the Kenny Burns, who's a friend of the show, and maybe some other reporters and other newsmakers in the state, and just sit down to do a roundtable every couple months. And we're going to do that during session, so we can kind of break down the bills, what they mean, because I think for the most part, people see the session and the bills going on, and they just kind of ignore it, and they don't realize what it means to them. But if you break it down, with the roadkill bill,
right?
I didn't understand what that was until we sat down with the governor and talked about it and how it affects all of us. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that. So we want to do, it's funny, we got into this and we thought we'd only do the occasional interview, and it turns out that that's a great big part of what we're doing, and because we're finding out so much about the state and about the city, but we're definitely going to be expanding that over the next year.
And looking forward, we've got some bigger pictures into 2017. We're going to be doing more of the on-sites, if you will, whether it could be a roundtable type of a thing. And if you've got a specific kind of a concept on how a roundtable should work, let us know. One of the thoughts that we had was to have maybe 7 or 8 different topics, and we randomly select one without knowing which one it is, and just sit down and have a group of 4 or 5 or 6 people, bullshit and talk about them. Or if you have a topic of your own, you can bring that into the table as well. So those were 2 thoughts that we had, but we're going to continue those. Tim and I have had a disagreement on the Skype, iPhone, or FaceTime remote type calling, and we're going to be testing that out in the upcoming weeks to make sure that works. Tim says, "Oh yeah, we got it covered," and
we're good.
I disagree.
We're totally good.
We need to try that because we're going to be talking to some people all across the state, and we're going to have to obviously rely on Skype and FaceTime, or even just a telephone call in to discuss, have a guest there. We are probably, and you mentioned maybe getting a guest host sometime. When I'm blow off something and stay at the military bowl.
You don't show up. That'd be great.
Have somebody on call, like a jackass on call or something, something like that. We're looking to do that, but we're also, going to be doing some cross promotion. I've got our&nbsp.net, and I just created a separate podcast section there, and ultimately we're going to have not only this podcast on there, but we're also going to feature some of the other ones. I've got to talk with Scott McMillan from the Annapolis podcast, Liz Murphy, and if you know of any other local podcasts that fit within the realm of the Ion Annapolis, we'd love to host them there. We just need the code. We'll put it right on.
Right, and also we talked about this too. About 5-6 years ago, there was a really vibrant community as far as blogs in town. That there was probably 6 or 7. That's when you had Paul Four with
Capital Punishment,
and then Brian Gill with Annapolis Politics, which was fantastic. There was
there were a couple nasty ones too that
which
were out
good.
there. There was Ion Annapolis. You had the patches that were in
and and everyone kind of played off each other. We want to do the same thing with the podcast here. So if you're interested in doing your own podcast with your own sort of perspective on anything, it doesn't have to do with Annapolis or anything. If you're interested in learning how to do this, and we're kind of stumbling our way through, if you have a question about equipment or how to do that web hosting or how do you do that, you're perfectly free. Contact us because we want to see more podcasts in town. We really do. We want to create a really vibrant sort of podcast community here in Annapolis and Maryland and the area. So if you're interested in doing something like this and want to say, hey, what mic do I buy? Do I need a mic? Do I need a computer? What's a digital recorder? We kind of went overboard with what we did, but you don't have to. It's very simple to do this. But if you want,
if you have a phone.
Yeah,
you kind of sound like that irritating lawyer. If you've got a phone, you've got a podcast.
But so if you have some questions, let us know.
No, not that all lawyers are irritating or anything.
This guy. But we'll help you. We'll help you get started because we want to see more of this going on in town. We think the more the merrier.
And that's not really a bullshit comment either. I mean, if anybody
we really want to help you guys do it.
Yeah, if anybody knows me, I'm always willing to give a hand with what I know and oftentimes what I don't know.
Yeah.
And
more often, yeah.
We can do that, and we'd love to do that to help you build a podcast.
Yeah, if you want to sit in while we do a podcast, you can absolutely do that. You come in and watch us do it, or it's
join in.
Yeah,
and everything else, which sort of leads to the larger picture. And this is a discussion that we had more than a year ago. Again, that never came to fruition as we had hoped, but it will now. But we're looking to build a podcast network, if that's the correct term. Would you think?
Yeah, podcast family.
We're going to have a centralized website that will feature podcasts of the region.
Right.
And you might have the Annapolis podcast, the Maryland Crabs.
Sports podcast.
The sports podcast. You may have a sailing podcast. The CVB is interested. I talked to them. Visit Annapolis, maybe have something. You may have Rams Head come on board with something for music. And it would be a very robust community, so everybody could go to one website, to one general channel, if you will, and stream all of these podcasts.
And find one that you wouldn't normally know about.
Right, it would all be fed on by feeds, so there would be no real updating per se. As soon as somebody updated their episode, they could do it. We could obviously coordinate amongst one another and say, okay, well, hey, I'm talking to the governor next week, or we're talking to this big band that's coming in, or whatever. So there can be some cross promotion. I mean, we can sit there and say, hey, my gosh, make sure you check out Rams Heads next week, because on January 15th they're having The Who play Rams Head on stage, or whatever it may be.
You're so old.
Yeah. Hey, I told you.
Oh, they're all dead.
62, hey, that's fine. But that's something that we're looking to do going forward. That's probably going to be a little bit closer toward the end of the year. There is some development costs that we need to look into to get that in place. So I guess the secret is to get more podcasts out there now.
Yeah.
And if you have it, and it can be, it doesn't have to be overly organized. I mean, if it's just an interest to you and you think there's an interest out there of somebody beyond you, that's a great start.
And we just learned by doing. It's some of these podcasts are better than others. Some are good. Some suck. This one might suck, but I mean, you're generally getting better each one. You're learning about audio quality. You're learning about what's interesting. You learn how to interview. You learn all these things.
Sure, and I think it makes a lot of sense to do it. So if you may not have any interest in podcasting per se, but you're a fervent sailor.
If you're passionate about anything, just do that thing.
I've got a good friend, and she collects beach glass. I think it's called beach glass. Sea glass is what it's called. And there's a huge element of people that do that down at the shore.
I'm trying to imagine what a podcast about sea glass would go. On episode 2, we're going to talk about blue.
It's like,
episode 3 will be white.
A flashback to Saturday Night Live, and
that might be a little bit of a niche podcast.
Yeah.
But
it could be anything. It could be a ranting and raving thing. It could be a comedy thing. If you think you're funny, make a podcast. We'll let you know. It could be about the arts. It could be about acting. There's just it's really a bottomless thing. And if we can feed off of each other, the adage is all, rising tide.
High tide raises all boats.
And that's, So that's kind of what we're looking forward to 2017. We kicked off to a great 2016 very late in the year with our first episode where we were like, hey, Governor Hogan wants school to start late, and we don't know what the hell we're talking about, to talking to the governor and saying, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, so
that's really kind of about it. I think we've got some exciting stuff coming on. If you're new to podcasting, again, check out Scott McMillan and the Annapolis podcast.
And definitely subscribe to these podcasts. It's what you want to do is go into iTunes or Google Play and subscribe, so it's delivered right to your device. And then, of course, you want to find us on Twitter at MD Krabs Podcast. Find John at Annapolis, Tim I'll be at Tim Hamilton 47.
Right.
And then Facebook page, the group, and all that sort of thing.
Right. And some of the other local ones that we talked about, Liz Murphy and Quintain Marketing, Creators Block is their podcast. Check that out. You've got Ryan Miner, who has a podcast called A Minor Detail.
Yeah, we found him. He's out in Hagerstown, right?
Yep. And that's Miner with an E, M-I-N-E-R.
I think he's a political, kind of libertarian sort of thing.
Yeah.
Pretty good podcast.
So there's a lot out there, and the Annapolis podcast there. There's other ones that I enjoy. But do it there. I want to, hey, shout out to Sammy's Italian Pizza Kitchen for
that's good.
For the good foods here in Eastport.
And everyone else who helped us. We were at Ebtide, thanks to you last night. And,
yep. Where else have we gone? We've gone to 49 West, we've gone to Ebtide, we've gone to Little Italy, up on Forest Drive, which
the bakery,
is good.
The bakery in Eastport, what's the name of that?
Up Leeward Cafe.
No, Leeward. I guess it was Leeward.
Yep.
Yeah,
we were at Leeward Cafe.
And we'll be doing more restaurants because it's better to do this while eating.
Yeah. So that's about it. I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, whatever it is that you're celebrating.
Yep.
And you're ready for a very good New Year. God knows this year's been a tough one for everybody dying. Unfortunately, I think 2017 is just going to be equally as bad.
People die all the time. Do you know who died today or yesterday? The guy who voiced Heat Miser on The Year Without a Santa Claus.
Really?
Yep. That was devastating.
Wow.
And then Carrie Fisher died.
And her.
All right.
And George Michael.
Yeah, gotta have faith up. So anyway, everyone have a happy and safe New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and we will be back next week with something. Make sure to send us your ideas. We want to hear them all. All right, adios.
This has been the Maryland Krabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them at all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandkrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.